What's up, you guys? Thank you for tuning in to Trial 9 Films. My name is Russ. And finally, the Batman is here. And no, I don't want to hear that, oh, that movie came out almost 3 months ago, blah, 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 blah. I know when the movie came out. I seen it on the day it came out. So you might be asking, why are you putting out a review 3 months later? And to answer that question, frankly, I wanted to take the time to give you guys the best review I could possibly give about this amazing movie. Spoiler alert for the review. And no, it's not because I'm lazy and I procrastinated doing this for 3 months. It's none of that. It's because this review is good. Believe me. But with that out of the way, let's jump headfirst into the review of The Batman. I'll say it right now. I love this movie. And, in my opinion, this is the best Batman movie we have gotten to date. I think the big problem, at least for me, when it comes to Batman movies, especially the older ones, is they're a little too goofy and comic booky, which is fine. I don't hate it. But for Batman, I kind of want a more serious, gritty, darker tone, and that's just what I see the character of Batman is. I know he hasn't always been that in the comics, but that seems to be the most popular interpretation. And the comic booky stuff, it works good for characters like Spider-Man and stuff like that, but the darker stories work well with that character too. But primarily, if you're going to do a goofy, comic booky, campy movie, you want to do something with Spider-Man or something like that. You don't want to do Batman. You wouldn't want like a goofy, campy Daredevil movie, for example, and the same goes for Batman. Batman usually works best in a dark, gritty environment. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, you have the super serious, realistic interpretation of Batman with the Nolan trilogy. And for a while, I would have told you, if you asked me, the best Batman movie we've ever gotten is The Dark Knight. And I think most people would agree, but now it's the new Batman is giving it a run for its money, to be honest. And the Dark Knight trilogy does still hold its place as some of the best Batman movies that we've ever seen, and rightfully so. But if you ask me, there's one overarching problem that these movies have. It's too realistic, and it almost takes me out of the movie a bit, if I'm being honest. You could almost tell that they wanted to do more, but they couldn't because of this realistic world they locked themselves into. And honestly, in my opinion, this is where the Reeves trilogy shines. It lands itself in that perfect sweet spot of comic booky and realism. And it's perfect. Reeves has built this world that I don't live in and the average person doesn't live in, but we can imagine what it would be like to live in it. It's not too out there and otherworldly that we can't relate to it, but it's also not too realistic to where it feels like it's just our world. And I feel like this is where a superhero movie can truly, truly shine, because you have an audience that can relate to it. But once you start going into the more fantastical elements of a superhero movie, it doesn't completely take you out of it. It doesn't feel out of place when you try to do it. So you're not locked in that box of everything has to be explained and be realistic. You can do things that you couldn't do in the real world, but it will still relate to the audience because I can see that this isn't the world I live in. This is the world that the creator has made, and I can see myself living in that world, so I relate to it. But at the end of the day, I don't live in that world. So whenever some other fantastical things start happening, I'm not completely taken out of the movie. And the Batman does this perfectly. You can imagine yourself in the Gotham City that Reeves has built for his movie, and you can connect with it. You could imagine it. You could imagine being there, but it's not too realistic to where it becomes boring and mundane. The whole point of a movie is to allow the audience to escape into a world that you've built. And if it's too fantastical, they may enjoy it, but chances are they're not going to relate to it. But on the other side, if it's too realistic, it's not an escape at all. It's just your normal life. You're not escaping at all. And this is where I think the Batman falls right in that sweet spot for me. The Batman lands right in the sweet spot of fantastical and realistic. The fight scenes are immersive. The city they built has character. The cinematography is beautiful. And don't even get me started on how badass that Batmobile is. All that to say, this movie is utterly eye-catching, from the set design, costume design, all the way down to the lighting. The dialogue is also something I enjoy a lot. It feels sort of like a modernized like crime noir, and it is just an utter joy to listen to everything that the characters are saying. The story is strong too. Not to say strong for a superhero movie, but just strong in general. You know, a lot of the times I feel like with superhero movies, the action and spectacle takes the forefront of the movie with somewhat of a story. I'm not saying that's all superhero movies, especially recently, but that's generally the case. Is the spectacle is the main thing you're there to see. But with the Batman, you get spectacle, but you also get amazing storytelling. The plot twists catch you off guard, and even the slower detective parts still had me on the edge of my seat. Batman is supposed to be the world's greatest detective, and it's nice to actually see him flex that skill a little bit because we haven't really seen it before. And the fact that this movie is almost 3 hours long and it kept my attention the entire time is pretty impressive, especially with how slow the movie can be at times. It's not all action and fast paced stuff. There's slow parts, and even through those, I'm on the edge of my seat waiting to see what happens next. And that's hard to do, especially with audiences nowadays. A 3 hour runtime's kind of asking for a lot, but no one seems to complain about the 3 hour runtime, and I honestly would have liked more. Even on a rewatch, I know what happens. I've seen everything. I'm still not bored watching this 3 hour movie, and that's something to be praised, in my opinion. This movie does an incredible job of throwing you into the world of year two Batman. He's not perfect and he makes mistakes, but he feels real. He feels like a real person that you're watching. And most importantly, he feels like Batman. Pattinson did an incredible job with this role, and I'm honestly just stoked to see what he has up his sleeve for the next few movies. And I mean, this movie just on its own just screams Batman to me, and Pattinson had a big part to play in making me feel that way. This movie actually re-sparked my interest in Batman. It brought me back to being 12 years old again, playing the Arkham games, being obsessed with Batman, collecting all the action figures, stuff like that. And that hits a sweet spot for me. We've been pretty dry on Batman content, in my opinion. It's nice to have something that brings me back into the world of this character that I loved so much as a child. This entire movie felt like a passion project. You can tell that every single hand that touched this film cared and loved about this movie. And that feeling is rare, especially with these big IPs. A lot of them come out feeling just like a cash grab or very formulaic. And the fact that everyone who touched this movie, you can tell they cared about it, it really is what makes it great. It wasn't just some heartless cash grab. It was full of passion, love, and fury. And this movie shows you that love and passion and fury in every way that it can. You can tell there's not a single wasted moment, person, or thing in this entire movie. And with a 3 hour runtime, that is incredibly impressive. There seems to be no filler for me. I went into this movie expecting to love it already, but I came out of that theater and my mind was blown. I just couldn't stop thinking about this movie. Finally, we have a big franchise that has a clear artistic vision and isn't afraid to take risks and do what it wants. There's passion in this movie. There's heart in this movie. This movie has everything a Batman fan could ever want. Because if you take a look at its skeleton, it's a gritty noir about a man who was destroyed by this city, and he decides to take revenge. But he's not the only one who feels this way. He's not the only one who decides to take action. And by the end of the movie, he realizes that the only way to truly save this city is to take that vengeance that he had and turn it into hope. Hope that there could be better. Hope that there is something better. Hope that people do care. And that's what Batman's all about. Batman is about hope. That when you see that bat signal in the sky, you see hope. And this movie just portrays that perfectly. At the end of the movie, Batman turns vengeance into hope. And I think that's beautiful. So that being said, I rate this movie 94%. I think it's almost perfect in every way. There is some flaws with every movie, but at the end of the day, I love it. And the reason for the 94% is because I want to give it some room to improve, because this set the standard for Batman movies for me. But I want to see if with the next one they could set a higher standard, and we'll see where that lands. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed, hit like, subscribe, blah, 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 blah. You know how to do that. I don't have to tell you. And I'll see you on the next one. Thanks.